All right, welcome to this episode of Trojan Poetry. This week I have chosen the poem. Mike has not read it before. And we are going to go old school with a poem by Archibald MacLeish. This poem is, well, we'll talk more about it later. So this is called Way Station. The incoherent rushing of the train dulls like a drugged pain, numbs to an ether throbbing of inaudible drums, unfolds hush within hush until the night withholds only its darkness. From the deep dark a voice calls like a voice in sleep, slowly a strange name in a strange tongue. Among the sleeping listeners a sound as leaves stir faintly on the ground when snow falls from a windless sky, a stir, a sigh.
All right. Well,
All right.
should I go first?
Sure.
Or do you want to respond first?
Sure, no, you can.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear what you have to say.
I mean, can I just give my first emotional response here?
Yeah.
A lot of drug references at the beginning, it seems like to me. Almost like, dulls like a drug pain, numbs, and ether, right? So it sounds like he doesn't want to be in the present. He doesn't like the present. He's in pain and he's trying to get out of it. But then something unfolds, right? So it begins with he's numbing himself, and then something unfolds, and it seems like the whole poem kind of unravels itself from there. He says the night withholds only its darkness, which seems like a strange, it's night, it should be dark. How is the night withholding its darkness? Maybe the darkness of thoughts and evil that you're going through. Because then he goes into, from the deep dark, a voice calls, like a voice in sleep, a strange name and a strange tongue. So I don't know, it's just this weird dream-like, he's trying to numb himself, or he feels numb, and yet something is reaching out and calling to him. And then at the end, a snow falls from a windless sky, a stir, a sigh. I pictured almost like one of those Japanese prints. It seems like very haiku-esque to me, where, you're just in a silent, it's capturing a moment, and you see the snow falling, and you hear that one little sound. So I thought the last lines were really cool. And that's in terms of what this means, I don't know. It's just pure imagery to me. That's all. That was my takeaway. It's just pure imagery, and it's really cool imagery. You know?
Well, and because part of the reason we're doing this is so that people can see what it looks like to read a poem the first time, right? That even English teachers, when we read poems for the first time, it's a struggle,
right? We're lost too,
Right. It's not like you read a poem, you're like, oh yes, I understand everything about this poem,
Indeed,
right?
Let's analyze.
So, right, that first gut response of, oh, that's a cool image, or oh, I think this ties to that, or right, and then I've read the poem now 7 or 8 times, so I maybe have a little bit more sense of what's going on, and I've looked up a little bit of research about the author. So just to give a little background, because it ties into what you said, Archibald MacLeish lived from 1892 to 1982, and he lived primarily in Glencoe, Illinois, so about 30 miles from where we are. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either until I looked it up. So this poem came out in 1926, right? So kind of at the height of the modernist or the early modernist era. And he became very well known, and he had a poem called Ars Poetica, in which he said that a poem should not mean but be. Right, a poem should not mean but be. And then his poems eventually became more political, and he became more about meaning and actually commenting on or trying to deal with the world. But this is almost like an imagist, and so when you said it was like pure imagery, I was like, yeah, that's kind of what's happening, right? It's sort of an imagist poem where it's just this imagery and it's supposed to have an impact. And so I think listening to you, I think the way I would make sense, well, I think because you instantly went to the drug references, right? And I hadn't noticed that. Obviously I had mentioned drug, but I didn't get the numbs and the ether. I hadn't connected those that way. Because for me, the first line, the incoherent rushing of the train, right? To me, he's hearing a train.
Yeah.
And the train is making this violent, incoherent sound, and it is like a drug, right? That sound is like a drug that dulls pain and it numbs him. And there's just this, the image of ether throbbing of inaudible drums, right? this mysterious
like
rumbling
pounding
sound
in his head almost.
Right, and it's unfolding hush within hush, which is the opposite, right? Like incoherent rushing of the train should be loud, but it's actually numbing him, and it's inaudible drums, which doesn't really quite make sense, and it's hushing, and then that's the end of the period. That's a sentence. And then it goes into this middle part, which you mentioned, from the deep dark, a voice calls like a voice in sleep. So like the sound of the train becomes a voice, and it's like calling to him, right? And it's got in a strange tongue, right? The voice of the train is like this strange language, and then that's the end of a sentence. And then the last sentence, which is the last few lines, among the sleeping listeners, a sound as leaves stir faintly on the ground. So it's almost like there's this crazy, incoherent sound of a train, and that becomes this almost like white noise, right? And then that gets translated in the sleepers' heads into snow falling.
Yeah, into these other, it's almost like it's leading you through all these linked images.
Right,
until
and
the last
so
one.
what I then realized was that like the beginning is all mechanical, right? And it's this train making this crazy sound, and then the ending is so much more gentle and organic, right? And so it goes from machines and crazy noise to the gentle sound of snow falling. And that's what happens to the sound of the train in the sleeper's mind. And how interesting it is that the human, this is where I went eventually, it doesn't mean anything maybe, but that we in our minds have the power to change sounds, not on purpose, right? But it's a strange tongue, right? Like, how do we relate to the sounds of the modern world? Well, when we're sleeping, we take them and turn them into something beautiful.
Yeah, something that
Right.
you want to see and hear.
Right?
And
That's where I went with it.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't
No.
notice that progression
Yeah.
at first, but what you say about it goes from machines to human voice to...
But it's not a human.
Well,
it's
a strange
like a
name.
voice.
Yeah, like a voice. Strange name and a strange tongue. So it goes, well, I guess language.
Right.
So it goes from machine's language into natural...
In your head.
Yeah, a natural sound at the end. So it's almost like he's a lucid dreamer and he's taking something that he doesn't like and he's turning it into something that's pleasant for him, that he
Right.
would rather experience at the end. So that's cool. That links it for me and helps it to make sense for me.
Because you think, like, if you live near a train, like I grew up kind of near a train tracks, and we would hear trains all the time, but there must have been trains going on when I was sleeping,
That you weren't aware of.
but I didn't say,
obviously.
oh, that's a train. Maybe in my sleep or in my dream, I turned it into something better.
And how powerful is that?
Right.
That you can do that. That's
Right.
your power within the human mind. You know?
Right, but it's so mysterious, right? The hush within hush until the night withholds only its darkness. Like,
Just really cool, really good imagery in this
Yeah.
poem. It's all visual and I can see it, even though it's so weird and
Right.
abstract in a way. I can see it.
right. And it's 91 years old at this point, which of course, that doesn't mean anything, but
Yeah,
it's still
right.
cool. that,
Couldn't tell.
All right, well, I don't really have a question. Just, do you agree that maybe it is about the human mind and its ability or its desire to change sounds, and to want to dream maybe of a better place? Maybe that's it.
Aha.
But it doesn't have to mean anything, all right? The idea was poem should not mean but be.
Right. And it's our take,
Right.
right? It's our take on it. All right, well, thanks for watching. Please join the conversation in the comments on YouTube or on Twitter at Trojan Poetry DGN. Also, check out our website at trojanpoetrydgn.blogspot.com.